Good morning and welcome to the first webinar in our Reopening Hospitality series. We've created a schedule of webinars featuring a range of supplier members who will provide advice, guidance and practical tips to help your business reopen and recover successfully. This morning, we're joined by Dyball from Caterer.com, who will lead a discussion on building strong teams to meet new customer needs. As always, we encourage you to submit your questions via the chat function on the right-hand side of the panel, and the panelists will answer your questions at the end of discussion. So, Kathy, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you and good morning everyone. Welcome to this webinar, as Chana has said, on building successful teams to meet customer need now that we're reopening. I'm delighted to be joined today by Klaudia and Michael, who will introduce themselves in just a moment. And we'll just be talking through from their own perspective and experience how they're approaching reopening when it comes to supporting teams, bringing people back, getting the most out of those individuals, and then looking ahead for building on future success. Because certainly from a Caterer.com perspective, in my role as brand director there, it's evident that we're bouncing back robustly. The customer need is absolutely there. When we look at job numbers on Caterer.com, they are ramping much more rapidly actually than we had expected at this point in time. And so that's a really positive platform from which to go forward on, but at the same time the people that are within our businesses are crucial to that success. They are central to it, and you might say they are our businesses. So today we will be talking to Michael and Klaudia about how we can make sure that those teams are set up in the way that they need to be, supported in the way that they need to be, and then how we can move forward to keep that momentum going through what is inevitably going to be a challenging and exciting year. So before we crack on with the conversation, Michael, would you like to introduce yourself, and then Klaudia, so everyone can understand who you are and what you do?
Hello there. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Michael Bonsor. I'm the Managing Director at Rosewood, London. I opened the hotel almost 9 years ago, and we've actually stayed open since last September. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of insight later about how that has gone for us, and we're so excited now to be sort of getting all areas of the property back open.
Excellent, thank you, Michael. And Klaudia?
Hello everyone, my name is Klaudia. I'm a work psychologist and learning and development specialist, and I'm very passionate about L&D and happiness in the workplace. So I'm also a co-host of a podcast called Unhappiness, which is all about that topic and how to practically apply it to your teams.
Thank you. Well, we love talking to you both, Michael and Klaudia. It's a great pleasure to have you here today. So just a note to the audience, do put your questions through as you've been prompted. We'll endeavour to answer those at the end. If we can't get round to answering them live because we talk too much and take up the time, then we'll endeavour to answer them for you afterwards in the communications that follow. Okay, so let's kick off. Michael, let's start with you, because you're absolutely fully into not only reopening, but you've been open all that time, of course, and things are going well. What stage are you at now with reopening? How would you define it, and how things are going so far?
So, as I said, we've been accepting guests in September for those who are legally allowed to travel, but we've diversified sort of the business over the last few months to those markets. So, we've had elite sports teams traveling. We've had movie shoots and location shoots allowed to happen. A lot of entertainment business was allowed to happen. So we've had to sort of change up our sales team to sort of look at those different markets and try and attract those in. And we've been pretty successful at that over the past few months. And of course, since April 12th, we've had al fresco dining open. I think once Boris sort of made that announcement that April 12th was happening, I think we took about 3,000 or 4,000 reservations over that sort of week for future dates. Well, I think now we're on sort of the 8,000 reservation. So, and it's taken off so much that we're about to add 50 more seats to our outside dining, which will probably take it up to about 180 seat restaurant, which is in our courtyard. So we're kind of blessed with this outdoor space already. However, which sort of removed the space that we would normally park cars in to now accommodate this outdoor terrace area. But it's great. I mean, it's great to see, you know, if anyone knows the hotel, there's always been a great buzz in the hotel. And it's just really great to have that back. You know, the courtyard is just kind of alive with people now, which is fantastic. But, you know, what's really encouraging to see is that from sort of May 17th onwards, we're now beginning to see the restaurant indoors begin to fill up. And in fact, that first Friday after May 17th, we already have 150 reservations for dinner inside and a full terrace outside. So, you know, and speaking to other hoteliers as well, room reservations now are really coming in quite strongly for that Friday and Saturday night. And, you know, and it is going to be about the Friday and Saturday night for quite some time. You know, I think the Sunday through Thursday business is going to take a bit longer to come back. So it is going to be all about the staycation in London on those 2 nights. But most of us have a really healthy base right now, around sort of 30–35% occupancy already for those, you know, that Friday and Saturday, which is really encouraging. And you know, most of food and beverage team are now back. You know, we made a lot of changes in the team pre-reopening. So we've actually brought all the restaurant and bar teams together into one department, so that, you know, because we have Scarfs Bar, Mirror Room, Holborn Dining Room, the outside area, events, all of that team are now in one team, so that everyone can get hours, everyone can get some of that service charge back that so many of our teams haven't had. And, you know, so we can sort of fairly sort of split hours throughout the entire team.
Okay, so that takes us nicely on to my next question, really, is, well, how are your teams responding to reopening and returning, and indeed those structural changes you've made to the whole workforce and their roles?
Yeah, I mean, I think through this entire time, we've never communicated so much. In fact, you almost feel that you're kind of repeating, you know, so much what you've just repeated. But we know we were getting immediate feedback from the team that, you know, weekly calls, bi-weekly calls, sort of coffee chats that weren't business related, but just checking in with each other. The follow-up, of course, as well. Like if the same person wasn't sort of checking in with us, or we weren't hearing from the same people, that we were calling them individually and directly to sort of check in. And I think this is really important for all of us. You know, yes, it was an incredibly stressful year, but there's varying levels of distress and stress in there. So I think we have to acknowledge that we all feel so differently from what we've just gone through. And some people are super excited to be back at work. Some people haven't stopped working. Some people have actually worked, you know, more than they ever have in a really stressful environment over the past year and haven't stopped. So, you know, they actually need to get some time off. People who haven't been here for a year need to come back, and how comfortable do they feel? And you're literally dealing with people from, I can't wait to get back, can I come back today, now, to people thinking, well, actually, I'm not sure if hospitality is my career anymore, and I'm really having doubts about, you know, continuing in the industry. So I think as employers, we really need to recognize that, and actually not shy away from that, because that is happening in all of our businesses right now. It's not just unique to me. And we just have to acknowledge that and ask that, and be super transparent with our associates as well. And, you know, and we've had a lot of people say, well, how are my hours going to look? Am I going to come back full time? Are you hiring? You know, what about some people that, you know, have lost their job? My friends are looking for work. Are you And we just need to be super transparent. And we actually, about 2 weeks ago, had a call where we really shared information that we wouldn't normally to all associates, which was really about how we foresee the business, how we foresee their hours sort of materializing over the next number of months. And people really appreciated the honesty and the transparency, because there's still a lot of questions out there. We just don't know the answer, you know, and rather than sort of I don't know, sort of trying to sort of appease everyone, it was just honest, transparent. You know what, we don't know the answer to that. We probably won't know the answer to that for another month, 2 months, maybe even 3 months. So, you know, but if we do and things change, we'll let you know. And I think you have to just be, you know, as transparent, as honest as possible right now.
Yeah, I think we are, you know, hospitality is a people-centered industry. The people are the brand, so let's treat people as people.
Right.
And all people are different as well. So that's fantastic. Klaudia, let's bring you in here, because I know you'll have some good insights on this. How do people typically respond to periods of change such as this? And this is a huge period of change, of course, perhaps the biggest period of change of any of our lifetimes so far. How would we expect people to normally respond?
Yes, very kind of what Michael already described. I think that's kind of change management in practice there, because the moment there is a change, the change naturally pushes us out of our comfort zone, and that means we will experience discomfort. And different people will deal with that discomfort differently depending on their level of resilience, depending on their experiences. So as Michael already mentioned, some people will be very, very excited. And as employers and managers, we need to utilize that commitment, but also not allow people to burn out too quickly. Because people want to just come back, jump into it. They really need that change, but actually then we may be putting their well-being at risk. Then you have also, there'll be people who'll be hesitant and skeptical. We always have skeptics when it comes to change. Those will be your employees who will ask lots of questions, as Michael mentioned. What are my hours? How exactly it's going to look? Everything will look like. And we just can be transparent and open with them and provide them that clarity and information. And I think from a manager perspective, we not necessarily have to have all the answers. I think we need to accept that this period coming from lockdown is more like a experimentation rather than decision-making period. So let's give our teams a clarity on this is how your next 2 weeks will look like, or a month. And then we re-evaluate, and we can see where we sit, where you stand on it, how we can work together going forward. And I think that's the best way to really engage your skeptics and people who are hesitant and anxious and worried about that change. And then finally, you have people who are disengaged. Again, Michael touched upon that unfortunately some people will say, this is maybe not for me, I don't belong here anymore. Then again, we can help them through kind of reconnecting them with the brand. I think if you've been on furlough for quite a long time, you maybe lost that purpose. You lost that kick of that service and fun and people because you've been not doing it. So maybe people need a little bit of reminder of what the purpose is. If that doesn't work, managers need to have those constructive conflicts and tough conversation of how people going to fit in the future of the business. But generally, I think that approach of everyone is different, change causes people discomfort, and you just need to manage people differently on their needs. It's very important, and that allows us to be just humans and be empathetic, which I think, and authentic, which is what we really want in the end of the day within the sector.
I think that's really absolutely valid, that you've got to consider each group of individuals' different approaches and give them the short-term goals and I guess the long-term goals. I mean, Michael, I know when we've spoken before, you've been painting a long-term picture, haven't you, for your workforce, as well as giving them shorter-term goals to aim for. But are there for those of us listening today thinking, well, that's all very well if you have a huge workforce, but I don't. I have 10 people, 20 people. What are the key considerations, would you say? Are there 2 or 3 watch outs, Klaudia, that you would say employers need to look for or action on?
So I think definitely that clarity, and I think in the midst of change is definitely having over communication is better. than actually no communication. I know, like, it feels like we're repeating maybe the same thing, but people actually need that reassurance. So definitely that clarity, because they will be coming back to you for those answers. And if you don't have the answers, be transparent why, when you can get them. So it's really leading people in that change, and also getting people involved in that change. So again, utilizing that positive energy that people do want to come back. And maybe if you have that team of 10 people, how people can rotate within certain tasks. I know that that's not how it used to be, but now we need to be agile and flexible. So how we can engage people in that change process and have that two-way communication, thinking, okay, this is how we're thinking of doing this, but how would you propose we do that? So that this works for you and for other colleagues. So I would really think the clarity and the kind of communication, and then those resilient threats, as in things that, well, what is it that what kind of threats are out there that maybe cause our team discomfort? Is it long hours? Is it the extra pressure? Is it actually the health and safety aspect? Because all of them you can actually address individually. So it's almost having a little bit of like an assessment of what stresses my team, and how I can help to support that and solve that.
That's really good advice, Klaudia. Thank you. And if there's any questions, by the way, in the audience to find out any more detail on that, do pop them in the chat. Let's talk about customers for a bit, because kind of that's what it's all about, is meeting customer need. And customer needs inevitably are evolving, changing. They will be different. Michael, so as customers returning, how have you found their needs are changing? And how are you seeing that playing out now, and let's say over the coming months?
Yeah, I mean, we saw a glimpse of the consumer sort of trend change back in September, October, and we're seeing a repeat of that. So what we saw in those 2 months and what we're now seeing is that people are staying for longer. So the length of stay is up by a couple of nights. It is incredibly last minute. So, you know, lead times right now are sort of 0 to 7 days for business, even like the night before for sort of significant suite bookings. You know, high value bookings are coming in at midnight for arrival the next morning. So very last minute, longer stays, and people are spending more money. So there's less clients, especially when it comes to sort of bedroom sales, definitely less clients, but people are buying up into suites, higher room categories, and staying longer. And what they're also doing is that they're in touch with the property or the business more in advance than they ever have been. So, you know, they're using the concierge. There's less left to chance. So, you know, everyone pretty much arriving right now has airport transfers or train transfers into the hotel. They're staying on property more. So they're using they're really, well, now it's only al fresco dining at the hotel, but before in September and October, you know, they really were lunching and dining and drinking on property more so than sort of venturing out of the hotel. So we're seeing that too. But yeah, a great deal of more communication from us to them, and then from the consumers back pre-arrival, which I think will continue all the way through the summer. Also, you know, I think a lot of businesses had to pare back services. They had to, you know, take items out of the bedrooms, reduce services, reduce operational hours. But what we're seeing from clients is that if you're still doing that, you're probably not going to get the business convert, because people are spending more. Average room rates have never been higher right now, but they also expect to have the service. So you can't say, well, the concierge desk is closed right now, or you can't say, well, the spa is only open 2 days a week. You can't say, you know, X, Y, and Z. The menu is very limited right now because there's so few people staying. So people want all the services back, and actually, we've now gone back into our bedrooms and put back a lot of items that initially, when, you know, COVID sort of reared its face, you know, we removed from the rooms. We're just trying to put everything back as much as we can now, and still in a sort of very safe manner, because we have clients paying very high rates right now. And food and beverage, I mean, last Monday, that first Monday of alfresco dining, I think every table had a bottle of champagne or a bottle of wine on it. So people average spend when it comes to food and beverage. I'm speaking to my local pub. I'm speaking to other standalone restaurants. We've all seen it over the past week. People are spending about 30% more on the table than they did previously last year.
Well, that's great news, isn't it? I mean, we did some research with caterer.com. We've done 2 sets of research actually to understand how customers view hospitality now and what they intended to do when they were able to. And it was, yeah, spend more, go out more, but also that expectation of a high level of service. If I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend, I expect to get what I expect to get. Interesting, Michael, that they're communicating more with the teams as well, just because they're people too. We all need that reassurance and that dialogue, and also that's part of the experience, isn't it? It's a long time since we were able to speak to somebody who was behind a bar or serving on table, and they miss it.
Absolutely, and that's also what has changed too, is who that client is, because that corporate traveler, that corporate guest really isn't here right now in any great numbers. So the majority of, the people staying are corporate, for the few people that are staying. But when it comes to food and beverage right now, it's mostly leisure clients. It's mostly people catching up with friends, us catching up with family and friends, rather than sort of business meetings taking place at the table. So, our staff need to act differently as well, because people are at the table longer. They want to have engagement and conversation.
So how has this impacted your teams? And because obviously the skills that they need, the roles that they play are all about meeting and exceeding customer needs. So how have those changed as a result?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely want, they want that engagement from our associate. They want, the knowledge of the food and beverage items more than they ever had before. But I think, moving forward, what we're now doing is that we're now in touch with more so the markets that we feel are going to be next traveling. And it sort of, it kind of blows our mind to think that we might see an American client before we see a French client. So, we're now in touch with those markets to make sure they understand, what's open right now, what will happen on May 17th, hopefully. Understanding the potential rules get into the country, making sure that we're ahead of that curve so that our consumers that we expect to arrive next are kind of well informed and feel comfortable about being here hopefully next month. But it's great. I mean, we're already seeing green shoots of group business, corporate business now booking in for the end of May, early June. And in fact, this conversation I'm having right now with you, I feel that it's happening almost a quarter earlier than I thought it would. I feel like I'm having what the conversation I would be having in September is now happening now. So I think the rebound is going to take us a bit by surprise.
And so you've got leisure customers now, then you'll see the corporate customers coming. So you've got teams and skills meeting that leisure customer now, which will then have to evolve, I guess, again to meet the corporate customers. So you've talked a little bit about how you've restructured your teams. Can you go into a bit more detail about how, what kind of roles you have there and what kind of skills you're looking for specifically at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on the food and beverage restructure, sort of bringing all of those teams together into one team so we can get that flexibility and that agility that we really need right now to move the business forward. But it's also happening in our sales and marketing team. A lot of our sales managers have had to diversify from their markets because, our Middle Eastern sales manager or our, North America sales manager, their areas can't travel, but who can? So what can we do? Our entertainment manager, who normally looks after, movie junkets at the property and so forth, has had to sort of diversify into location shoots and movie shoots. And quite quickly that had to happen. And I must say, there hasn't been one single issue from the team to sort of diversify skills and look at new markets. In fact, I think it's really pushed all of us to relook at our businesses in a very different light. We've started online delivery of not just food and beverage items, but gifting. So certain team members are now, in charge of the online store, but that wasn't their role before. So there's lots of different things that are happening right now. We've got, sales marketing managers being hosts in the restaurant right now. We have a concierge now in food and beverage reservations. We have our chauffeurs now delivering food and beverage orders for delivery. So, and I must say, and this is this is what we're all about in hospitality. Everyone sort of dives into different roles and sort of helps out. Now, someone's just asking, were those restructures permanent or temporary? Well, we see it kind of as a permanent thing for now. So maybe that is temporary. But I think it's going to be in place for the rest of the year. I think we're going to need that flexibility and agility. I think we're going to have peaks and troughs in business. I think we're all going to get very excited about May 20th when all the restaurants sold out inside and outside. I'm going to be very excited. The team's going to be very excited. But potentially the second Friday in August, the third or fourth Friday in August is going to be quite quiet, as August tends to be. So I think there's going to be peaks and troughs of business. I probably think there's going to be a bit more stability from September onwards. But I mean, the positive news is here, we're going to be rehiring very soon. Because if the forecast we're looking at right now, we need to. I think we probably will all need to get a bit ahead of the curve and sort of, start looking for new associates very soon. So I think there's some tricky months ahead of us, and months where we might take some risky decisions to maybe hold on this and maybe do this now, and maybe we could have waited a week. There's going to be a bit of that back and forth, but I think as long as the team is aware that it's all a little bit experimental, as we've said already, I think as long as you have everyone on board on the same mission, sort of knowing the same thing. And you know what? The main goal here is to get the business back on track to how we fondly remember it from February 2020.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I mean, I think in terms of hiring and the skills that you're looking for, certainly with Caterer.com, those are the conversations we're having. It's interesting to hear you say that you're thinking now about things you thought you wouldn't be dealing with till perhaps September. It's the same for employers across the sector from our experience. They're all bringing those plans ahead and hiring now, and looking for the skills that they need to deliver that hospitality experience. They're looking for hospitality people. Perhaps there would have been a thought a few months ago that they wouldn't need to be that hiring because there'll be lots of people available. It doesn't seem to be transpiring. So, I'll be looking at another skills crisis. That's another webinar. But we won't talk about that today. But let's talk about learning and development, because whether you are, Klaudia, whether you are reboarding people and training them in the new environment, or when you're hiring, you're bringing new people in, what role does L&D, as we call it, or training play? Because that's changed too, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think L&D is just it's just so important in this process of reopening, because as you mentioned, there is entire aspect of re-onboarding. So if we want to engage people straight away, connect them with the purpose, and also have the right skills to start delivering that customer expectations, we need to really invest time and effort in a good re-onboarding program that is structured and that allows them to take refreshers from the compliance perspective in terms of health and safety, but also from a much bigger perspective, like reconnecting with brand, like refreshing values, like refreshing customer service skills. So really think about how L&D can build that very good structure welcome. So also people are excited and motivated. They come into the business and they're like, wow, I'm ready and I have all those tools and I really feel that sense of belonging. My employer has been waiting for me to come back. That's really what we want people to feel. I've been missed. great, I'm back, and this is a beautiful program in front of me. Then obviously beyond that re-onboarding process is thinking a little bit more strategically about, okay, what skills we need to learn today to be able to thrive and deliver in the new tomorrow. That's obviously a little bit trickier because there's so many moving parts, but we have quite lots of research behind this. As in, there is now quite lots of future skills policies and reports done, for instance, by CIPD, and they explore the relationship between economic performance and the kind of skills, and they saying that the future of tomorrow that we will need are definitely digital skills. No surprises there. Technology is just it's just passing us by really every day, I feel like it. So it's really much those digital skills. Helping your staff to be creative and innovative. So what is the process of creativity and problem solving? Data, how do we utilize data to make daily decisions? So when it comes to customer service, when you're doing customer surveys, all the data, is your staff have access to this? Can they look at it, read it, and apply it instantly? So they actually understand the customer needs, not from anecdotal, I think that's what trendy or that's what they need, but from a data perspective. Definitely being a leader, so the idea of leadership not reserved because you are in leadership role, but because in that moment you are a leader of that relationship between the customer and how you can lead that relationship to provide that amazing customer service. So really leadership skills, that of course covers management. Your managers, they're managing the well-being of the team and happiness of the team. Do they have the right skills to manage hybrid working and all these complex things that we now seeing arising in front of us? And the final one, emotional intelligence, back to the face-to-face, body language, all of those aspects. Are we able to manage our emotions well, recognize those emotions in our customers so we can actually meet the customer needs? And I think if you really think about L&D and build your strategy around those skills, you'll be safe whatever the future brings. That's kind of my personal view.
I think we should maybe rename L&D, not learning and development, enabling and empowering.
Yes, yes, please, because absolutely, let's rename it, because I think many times when people feel L&D re-onboarding, then feel about, oh, it's health and safety e-learning, and I'm just like, no, please, let's just go beyond that. Let's really think about that empowerment of people through developing them, and really utilizing the skills and motivations and strengths in that process.
Very interesting. Michael, how have you applied enabling and empowering L&D with your teams?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to do a lot of projects and things over the past number of months that, as operators, we've always tried to get to and tried to do, but never had the time, because in hotels especially, well, in any area of hospitality, it's always the excuse. Well, the operation got in the way, the day-to-day got in the way. We can't look at strategy too far ahead because we're so wrapped up in today. So we've actually managed to get a number of projects off the list, which was bringing a lot of training online, a lot of recognition online, so many different courses, committees up and running. So we have, we have like this amazing family committee who have sort of come up with all these great activities, whether it's from mental health awareness to boot clubs to picking up litter in the park near the hotel, to running half marathons in one of the Royal Parks last week, and all of these different things. And I think now more than ever, we need to have all those activities available to our team to bring everyone back together. We've been disjointed for so long, and as much as I love to connect today with you virtually, this is not what our industry is about. We all need to get back in the same space together. And so these little sort of meditations sessions and all these other little activities that have happened have just really started to bring groups together. And then in the first quarter, we really use the time to get people trained back up. So, you know, all of our associates have gone through a number of courses online to get people ready to return to work. And whether that is the health and safety and so forth, or videos of how you would kind of get round the hotel now and what has changed, you know. And I think it's difficult sometimes for us who have been here for the past year to put ourselves in the shoes of those who haven't been here for a whole year. And actually you need to kind of, and they can't be here right now, so you need to like really do those, you know, shoot those videos, send it out. This is how the arrival looks. This is how you're going to get to the locker room now. This is how you're going to get your uniform now. This is what the new alfresco dining looks like. This is what the menu is. Like, you need to like overshare all of that, to otherwise you're going to have 1,001 questions on day one, and you're going to be running around anyway because you're busy. There's lots of things going on, and 1,001 questions is probably not, as the operator, is what you want on day one. You know, you probably should only have 10 questions. So really, you know, getting much on as online as possible right now, getting the teams involved, getting people speaking to each other, cross department, you know, cross division, bringing people together, and yeah, oversharing communication and being transparent, as we mentioned before. You just can't really do that enough right now.
100%. So before we move on to the next sort of and probably final topic, which is well-being, which is crucial. I know that we've talked a lot about well-being as an industry and as a planet actually for the last 12 months, but it's becoming a kind of a thread that will run as a backbone through everyone's workforce strategies, isn't it? So we'll touch on that as we close. But to summarize, I think what I'm hearing from this conversation is, you know, remembering people, treat people as people. We're all different, and as much as possible that needs to be accommodated in the approach, whilst also understanding that you can't give every granular need attention. You can group, over communicate repeatedly, and be flexible in that communication. Perhaps not everybody receives communication the same way, so flex that. Enable and empower, whether that's through learning and development or the way that you run your workforces, so bringing those skills and those roles into a more holistic form so that you can be flexible, and that also enables people to perhaps bring their strengths to the fore as well, I imagine. And then finally, embracing change, and that means perhaps a lot of it is digital learning, but finally we are a face-to-face industry, and that's where we're heading. We need to let's not strip out all of those important points that make us so unique as a sector, that the face-to-face is so crucial. Have you got anything else to add to that before we move on to well-being? Any other points or tips?
I mean, the only thing I would say, which I meant to mention earlier, is that, you know, we did a pulse survey with the entire team, because, you know, we were presuming how people feel, or you know, and trying to do our best, and you know, everything we've just mentioned, sort of doing in the business, but we actually thought, you know what, we actually need to ask everyone sort of anonymously what really they're feeling right now, and that was really useful to us. I mean, it was great. You know, we had
Yeah, I think I completely agree with Michael. I think it's, and that's another humanly approach. Let's be authentic. Let's just not assume that what experiences people have and how they're feeling. Let's just ask them, and we'll be surprised, because many times our assumption is like, okay, this person was always like this before, therefore I expect them to return like this. And actually, no, just because people experience of pandemic or what's happening has been very individual and different. So definitely asking, sharing those authentic stories, sharing our experiences can help people to see and envision in their head how they're going to return.
And you're right, you know, people, the personalities of people that we saw over a year ago have changed. I mean, I had a really bad January. I had a very depressed January, and you know, I'm a very positive person. So, you know, whether we think it or not, the last year has affected all of us, and we're all doing a number of things differently today than we were last March.
I think I definitely want to work for employers who acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And if there are employers out there who aren't really thinking in that way, then it's just those small changes, just considering that can make a big difference. Even if you can't go wholesale with every strand, you can still make those changes in those small areas to make a difference to your people. Because at the end of the day, as we go forward, that's what will make those individuals in your business thrive, perform better. That's what we're all looking for, isn't it? That for the customer, and then you'll retain them as well. So it's for the future as well as it is for now, I guess. So let's close on wellbeing, because it's a core workforce strategy point now, isn't it? It's not, you know, we talk about meditation and yoga and so on, and that is important. But wellbeing is kind of, you know, why does it matter more than ever before? What do we mean by it? Klaudia, what do you think?
So I think from my perspective, in terms of well-being, I would definitely link it to that happiness in the workplace. And I think it's so important because, again, and this comes from research, from kind of organization and technology that measure the level of well-being and happiness in the workplace. We know from the research that stressed people are not very productive. And it's simple because of the way humans we are wired up, that if we experience positive emotions, our brain just performs better. So there's just no magic in there, no fluff in there. It simply comes to that cognitive abilities that we have. And if we are in that state of, you know, I'm safe, I know what's going to happen, I have that outlook at the kind of future focused and optimistic potential outlook on the future, and I feel comfortable right now, right here, and happy, connected with that purpose. I have the autonomy in my role. I can utilize my skills, so I'm expanding my mastery. Then I feel happy, and if I'm happy, I'm productive, I'm more creative, and that will obviously have massive impact of the customer satisfaction and then revenue that we're generating. So really, when thinking about those core components, again, from pure research, think about your autonomy, mastery, and purpose when it comes to well-being in the workplace. But similarly, think about those resilience threats. So it could be something like, you know, financial struggles that your employees may have. Can we support in any way? Mental health challenges, again, how can we support that? So we don't necessarily need to, as employers, solve all those issues, but we can have the information and guidance of where people can find the right support. And I think that's very important, that we communicating to the employees, look, we're looking after you. We cannot solve and impact everything, but here are some places that can really help you to do that.
So Michael, what are your thoughts on that? How have you been actioning points that support well-being in your people at Rosewood?
Yeah, I mean, again, the Pulse survey kind of indicated to us how people were feeling coming back to work, and the creation of this family committee have really taken a lot of that feedback on board, organizing these different clubs and activities which will span throughout the entire year. We're about to start something called the Loop next week, where we've taken a representative from every department. Some of those departments obviously are still not at work or still at home, but we're going to take a rep from each team department. So I don't know, there's like 20 odd people on the committee, and we're sort of going to have challenges and issues in the business, or new revenue streams, or there's going to be different topics in there which everyone then will get involved in, sort of coming up with solutions. So, you know, bringing everyone together. The benefits of this will be, you know, a lot of people who are still sitting at home then feel like they're kind of back at work, they're talking about work, they're kind of, you know, sort of changing their mindset as well from being at home into work, even though we might not see them until August. And, you know, and that they're involved in some of the decisions and changes at the property, because they'll then go back to their bigger teams, have meetings with their teams, and sort of put forward ideas and solutions to issues and problems. So I think that's something that's going to be really important, because I think, you know, the team the team that are here now really want to be involved in getting the business back up on its feet and the success of the business. You know, the amount of feedback we get, like if we post things on social media and so forth, so many of our associates are sitting at home are sort of saying, oh, I'm so glad, like, you know, we're hearing from you, we're seeing change, we're seeing positive messages. You know, we shot like this opening video back in September where we had like, it was a music video, we had a band sort of in the hotel roaming through the property, you know, and sort of, you know, setting off sort of confetti cannons in the courtyard at the end of it. And so many people commented and said, you know, that was such a positive thing to see. Everything else we were seeing in the market was, you know, people in masks and gloves and sort of, you know, wiping down surfaces, and all of that's here. Like, it's an incredibly safe environment, but actually it's a celebration that we're kind of getting, you know, life back up and running again. And I think, you know, just sending these positive messages are really important. But I mean, we need the team on board so we can sustain the change and get everything, you know, back up to where it was. And I think now more than ever, we can't just be an executive committee. We need to really involve everyone in the process.
You know, listening to all of this, it's undoubted that the last year and the last few months have been horrendous for the sector, but there are some positive build back points that are coming from it. You know, there's no doubt that businesses are thinking differently, employers are viewing their people differently, people are viewing their work differently, customers see hospitality differently. Those have got to be, as you say, Michael, seen as positive messages that we keep on repeating and build upon. Yeah. And you know, the road ahead is a marathon, not a sprint. But you know, as we said the other day, it's got a steep climb at the start. But let's keep our people resilient through that time, and that's how we'll deliver the best experience, I guess. Okay, so I'm mindful of time. It's 10 to 12. We'll close on wellbeing now. I think there's a couple of questions in the feed that I can see. One here for Klaudia, I think, but Michael, I think you also need to give your opinion on this. Will the need for L&D be stronger among hospitality staff in the next few years? And is this something businesses should invest in more heavily?
Yes, great question. Thank you so much. And well, my answer is yes. However, I think the L&D role will be very much expanding. So few trends that I see that will be impacting L&D going forward is definitely diversity and inclusion, and how, for instance, use of inclusive language will impact our customers in the future. And this is something that L&D will be heavily supporting. Also, when it comes to recruitment, you mentioned, Kathy, in the beginning, and maybe, you know, we may be seeing another skill shortage. Then we have to change our recruitment perspective a little bit, rather than talking about culture fit, think about culture add, and that obviously makes, that changes the training that we offer to get people to the same level, if they're coming from different sectors, different industry, but they're coming to the business because of that culture add. And finally, culture values. I think culture values well-being will be something that will be really much standard within the L&D. So I would say definitely yes, but start expanding that role so it can really make the impact where it's needed most.
And Michael, what do you think? Because I'm sure when you hear the words invest more heavily, that may not be the favourite phrase at the moment, but you know, do you feel that L&D is an increasingly core part of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think now looking back at the first quarter of this year, the amount of hours that we actually had the sort of talent and culture team work has really surprised me. And now looking back, it's exactly what they needed to do to nurture the team and keep the team engaged. So you know, the talent and culture team, you know, many of them have been back sort of in full hours over the past quarter, even though the business is sort of technically closed. And I think what we've also recognized is that in the business, associates need a different skill set. The management supervisors needs, each of these different tiers of the team need very different sort of approaches and courses put together. So we've actually managed to get about 80% of our management team through courses that we would normally have them do over the entire year. So, and so I think everyone's kind of in a much better spot to come back. But moving forward, yeah, absolutely, investment for sure needs to increase 100% in it. And that training line in all of our P&Ls is sometimes one of the first ones to sort of be paused or reduced. And we're blessed to have owners that recognize that that is going to be one of the key lines that needs to stay there and be there. I think more so than ever, over the past year, we've had people reconsider their careers. We've had people leave the industry. What we now need to be working upon is how we can attract people to this industry. I think all of us have a very strong opinion on how we feel the hospitality sector was treated during the past year. Some may think it was treated well. Some may think much more could have been done to protect hospitality. But I think what it is that we have a real upward battle right now about getting the image and reputation of hospitality and what hospitality career looks like, to the sort of general public and building upon that. So I think more so than ever before, we need to, have an incredibly positive image about hospitality out there and be nurturing our teams that have chosen this as a career. Or otherwise,
Really
real labour shortage very soon.
Yeah, those are really good points. I mean, obviously, when there are difficulties, so when I look back over my career, every time there's been a recession or any kind of challenge, marketing and training budgets, and I say the brand director of Caterer, tend to be looked at for reduction. But ironically, those are the very spends that will bring your business back in a strong and robust way and keep it resilient. So tempting as it is to cut out those support mechanisms and those elevations, that's probably the worst thing that you can do. So it's good to hear that L&D is an investment point going forward. Okay, so we're in the last 5 minutes now, and I know that we need to close. There are other questions, but I'm going to suggest that we answer those separately, and we'll come back to those questions to the individuals that have asked them after the session. But to summarise and close then, it's been a really fascinating conversation. Thank you, and thank you for your honesty as well, because this is what we need, isn't it? Transparency, honesty, to be able to say, look, we're all experiencing this differently, but same environment. And these are the top things that you need to look out for and do. So to summarise, Klaudia, can I start with you? Do you have one or two key things that you really want to make a point to our audience today to say, if you only do two things, do these two things to enable the success of your people as we reopen?
So I think personally for me, I'll be advising that clarity and structure. So we spoke about it quite a lot. Communicate and provide people the structure, even if it's temporary for a first week or a month, but that will just make the re-onboarding such a much more powerful experience. An engaged experience for people, definitely. And then I would really think about L&D in much more strategic way. So don't think only about the fires and fixes that you have now, but think about it in a much more strategic way, as we mentioned, about the kind of the skills of the future and how to reconnect your colleagues with the brand, and how to really retain staff, as again was mentioned so many times. So I think those two key aspects, very important.
Excellent. And Michael, how about you? What are your, if you only do two things, do these two build strong teams?
I think involve the teams in solutions moving forward, and make sure that they understand why. So whether that's you don't have an answer right now, or why you've decided to keep that restaurant closed for another 2 months, or why whatever it is, I think you need to make sure the understanding is there and ask that question, deliver a message, and then circle back on teams, maybe in smaller groups, and make sure that everyone is aware. And what I would say is, just moving forward, yes, you might do a pulse survey, 2/3 of your team are going to be super engaged. Look at that third, look at those people who you're not hearing from. Where are they? What are they doing? And sort of check in with them directly, one-on-one, because we're all going to have that group of people that just need a bit more nurturement and a bit more encouragement to re-engage.
Excellent, excellent tips. Thank you. Well, I'll close then by saying another thank you to you both, Michael and Klaudia. Such excellent advice and insight again, and it's lovely to see you here today. Thank you to UK Hospitality as well for this wonderful platform. These webinars, I know that they hold them frequently for their members, so if you've enjoyed this one, then absolutely sign up for future webinars with UK Hospitality. And then lastly, thank you to everyone who's attended excuse me, today. I know I can see from the numbers that the people that started with us have probably finished with us, so that's good. People have stayed engaged throughout, haven't got distracted by the sunshine or anything else work related, so that's good to see. It just leaves for me to say thank you very much and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, Kathy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.